Hello. Good afternoon. Or should I say good morning? I still have a few minutes before afternoon. How are you? Hi, and welcome to Sober Saturday, Part 2. Hello. Please let me know if someone's there and that I'm on. Good afternoon. Someone tell me if I'm on or not. I'm inviting people. I would assume I'm doing this right. Hi, thank you. Thank you. How are you guys? How is everyone doing this beautiful Saturday morning? Steaming, smoking, hot Saturday morning. Alrighty. Hi, my name is Bridget, and welcome to Sober Saturday, Part 2. Hi, I am so glad and thank you so much. Thank you so very much for all the people who tuned in last week, all the people who shared last week. I thank you so much because it's really all about providing a service or an opportunity to share my story and help others. I feel as though being transparent in these very uncertain times, and any time basically is a good thing. I always have people say, tell me, oh girl, you're not ashamed to tell your story, and you're not ashamed to tell people that. And I just kind of laugh and say, well, no, if I wasn't ashamed to do some of the stuff I did when I was drinking and turning up, as we call it, or as I used to call it, then I'm surely not ashamed to tell how good God has been to me, how he kept me and brought me. All right, it's Sober Saturday Part 2. Last week, I gave you a summary or an outline of what my life was like when I was drinking. I gave you where I was during the 4 stages of alcoholism, how long it lasted, some of the things, not all, but trust me, only some of the things that took place during this. Some people asked some questions. They talked about, they wanted to know about family members of alcoholics, people who have addictions, where can they go? Al-Anon is for adults, and Alateen is for teenagers. If you would like to have more information about that, please instant message me or send me a message through Messenger, and I can give you the resources. Someone also asked the question about how can you help? And this is a big one. Someone who has an addiction that you love, a brother, a sister, a husband, a wife, an aunt, a mother, a child. And there is a very thin line between helping and enabling. There is a thin line between helping and enabling. And I did some research and dug through some stuff, and I found some things. And if you would like that information, please DM or instant message me or send me a message through Messenger, and I will shoot it to you. via email or however you would like for me to provide it to you. Okay, well, the story picks up. You had the 4 stages of addiction, which are early stage, middle stage, late stage, and then it was that hit bottom. I'm at the very bottom, which my bottom I've learned being in the rooms of Alcohol Anonymous, that my bottom was not, I can't compare my bottom to anybody else's. Some people's bottoms are worse than mine, and some people's bottoms are not nearly as where mine was. I will always say that even during me being active in my addiction, God was right there with me. I listened when it was convenient. I participated and gave praise when it was, yay, God, you blessing me. But I really did not have a concept of how good God was to me until I looked back and I started unraveling and digging out and pulling out stuff. And I'm like, girl, the enemy had you under attack for a long time. I used to crack jokes and say, my poor little guardian angel probably told God, now look, I done been with this one for a while. Can you please assign me to somebody else? Because she is just not getting it. But thankfully, that didn't happen. And I'm grateful for that. My name is Bridget, and I am a grateful, recovering alcoholic. And I say recovering because for me, everything that I say and discuss is about Bridget and her journey. And you may hear or may know of people who have similarities, etc., etc. But this is my personal journey. For me, I will always have the alcoholic gene. But when I asked God to remove the taste from me, well, first of all, when I admitted that I was an alcoholic, and number 2, I realized that there is no human power that can relieve me of my alcoholism. And number 3, I asked God to come in and remove that from me. I am no longer the person that I used to be. So when I say I am an alcoholic, yes, I have those tendencies. And if I don't do what I need to do daily in recovery, it will come back with a vengeance. Because alcohol, and just like most addictions, is cunning, baffling, and powerful. And it's just waiting for an opportunity to ease its way back on in and slide back into my life and say, voila, bam, I'm back. Let me make up for lost time. So it is imperative that my recovery is a daily reprieve. It's a daily reprieve. The things that I do, some of the things I discussed last week was when I wake up in the morning, of course, my first, I thank God before I start asking and, for anything. I thank him for waking me up that morning. I thank him for giving me the grace to see another day. And then I thank him and I asked him to, Lord, let me be sober today. Let me work on the 24 hours ahead of me and let me not have a drink. And at the end of that night, I do a gratitude list with some friends and we discuss things. But I always thank him before I close my eyes to doze off, because I know without him, it could never have happened. I never had the strength on my own to stop drinking. And if I would have, I probably would have on my own. I never would have needed God. But I'm grateful that there is a program, and there are many different programs. Alcohol Anonymous is what I used, or what I'm currently using as a part of my treatment plan. When I first, November 25th, 2017, is the day that my recovery journey started. I made my mind up. I talked with some friends, and I remember one telling me, I said, well, I'm just going to stop drinking until I can get it together. And she was very clear to explain to me that you can't give yourself an out. If you think or say that you're an alcoholic and you're going to stop drinking, then you have to stop drinking forever, ever, and ever, ever. There is no I'm going to stop drinking until I get it together, because as an alcoholic, I don't have that privilege. I don't drink like normal people because I have an allergy to alcohol. You will often hear me say one drink is too many and a whole dang bottle is not enough. I have an allergy. Alcoholism is a disease, a dis-ease in my body. And I react by drinking as much as I possibly can until I get enough. And only I know when I get enough, and sometimes I don't even know, or I didn't know. Well, when I first started in my recovery, it's November, it's after Thanksgiving. I really didn't know what to do. There are many treatment centers. There are many other types of treatment. I just kind of winged it for a while. That was, looking back, I'm like, oh Lord, I know that wasn't nothing but grace and mercy and plenty of blessings and prayers, because, I didn't drink. At this point, I cannot talk to you from a viewpoint of relapse, because thankfully I've never relapsed, so I don't know anything about that. But I do know that there are different types of relapses. I also know that I have to be conscious of what are my triggers, because I have them. So for November, December, January, about February, I just winged it. I prayed. I had a great, and still have a great group of friends and a network of family and friends who support me, and they were my everything. They, I know they prayed for me. They talked with me when I had uneasy feelings. They were able to listen to me. I started therapy with a psychologist. And it was at that time I was working for HISD, and it was the beginning of the year, and I had not met my deductible. So I was paying 100% out of pocket for my sessions, and it became expensive. And a friend of mine suggested, because a friend of hers was going through a program with AA, and I was like, oh no, I'm all right. I can figure it out. Well, as the days turned and 24 hours kept passing by, I realized that I needed to get somewhere to get myself some help, or I was afraid that I was going to pick up where I left off. So I called the park, which is off of Gessner and I-10. Very good program, facility. You can live there. You can be an outpatient. They have treatment center, blah, blah, blah. I called them, and they just basically told me I didn't qualify for anything, because I had already been sober on my own with the help of God, not on my own, with the help and grace and mercy of God. I had been 3-4 months sober. I didn't qualify. So I'm like, dang, okay, well, what do I do? And then somebody told me again about AA. So a friend of a friend invited me to an AA meeting at the park. And that was my first AA meeting. And I remember I was so excited or interested. I got there way too early, because I believe in being early is, being on time is being early. And I ended up in a meeting for triggers. And thinking back now as I'm saying it, I think that was I know that was a good meeting for me to stumble into, because I had a chance to sit in a table with others who were talking about triggers. Because of course, I'm new, so I don't know any of this information. I'm just like feeling my way through this. So to sit at that table, and they welcomed me, and I told them what I was looking for, and they was like, oh, you're about 30-40 minutes early, but you're welcome to stay. So I stayed, and I listened, and I thought about the similarities. They were saying things that sounded like me. So I went on to my first AA meeting at the park, and it was a room full of people, different ages, different races. I mean, it was just like, I just sit there for a minute and was just looking around like, dang, people because even in my mind, I still have sometimes that stereotype of an alcoholic is somebody who's, like a bum on the street. They have on some raggedy clothes. They got a brown bag in their hand with a bottle of Ripple, and they bobbing and weaving, stumbling up and down the street. But for me to be in a room with people who were dressed and nice and, everybody spoke. So I went ahead through the meeting, and my friend, introduced me to some people, and, I got my first chip. I didn't understand the system of it. But I was a little uncomfortable at that particular meeting because a lot of people there were people who were in the program at the park. And because I wasn't a part of a rehabilitation center or a treatment center, or I wasn't a residential client, I felt like I was out of place. So I came in and I thought about it, and I said, okay. I got online and I found me an AA group close to me. I drove to Katy, and I never will forget, I was so scared, guys. I mean, I was like, oh no, like, what are they going to think? Because I was still processing, or, how am I going to live my life? What does this look like now that I don't have alcohol? Are people still going to like me? What do I do when I go places? I have people my son had heard me say I was going to stop before. He didn't believe me. I don't even know if I believe myself. I just know that I did not want what I already had, what I was in the past dealing with, the chaos and the confusion and the robbing Paul to pay Peter, and, just living for the moment, or not being able to sit still in a room, without wanting to jump up and move around, just unsettled. I had a hole in my soul. I had some holes, plural. I had more than one. So I pulled up, nice house, older house in Katy. And I remember looking at all the cars. I saw Range Rovers, I saw Mercedes. I'm like, oh my God, I must be at the wrong place. These people driving nice cars, what in the world? I wasn't gonna go in. The first thing, I was like, oh no, I'm in the wrong place. I can't, this is not it. And I kept looking around, and someone was like, if you don't get your buddy up in there and stop playing. So I took a deep breath and I went on in. And when I walked in, I was scared to death, not knowing what to expect. Everybody in there was Caucasian. I was the only black person. I was afraid of that. I was nervous about that. I was like, nobody in here looks like me, and then I walked in, and I never will forget, a lady was sitting on the corner, and I stepped, and she was like, come on in. And she, introduced herself. She spoke to me, and she said, well, you can have a seat right here. And she offered me some water, or do you want a cup of coffee? And then she asked me, is this your first meeting? And that's when the magic started. And I said yes. And anytime you walk into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and it's your first time, they do a first time meeting, and it's all about you. And people go around the room and they talk about what their life was before alcohol, and then they talk about the strength and spirit and hope and love that their life is like now that they've stopped drinking. So I sat and listened, and I cried, and I sat and listened, and I cried. And it was such a peaceful place to be, in a group of people that didn't necessarily look like me, but they were me. Because as I listened to their stories sounded a lot like mine, identical. And I remember them saying, just keep coming back. Your first hardest step, you came today, but the next thing is to keep coming back tomorrow. and they suggested doing 90 meetings in 90 days and get you a sponsor and work the 12 steps. And it was just a lot of information coming to me all at once. But I remember them, and we still do this when it's a newcomer. If it's a woman, then all of the women in the meeting sign their names with their phone numbers. And if it's a man and he's new, then all the men sign their names and give their phone numbers. And they give you that book and they tell you to read it. And they also tell you to pick up the phone and call if you think you're going to drink, or if you feel like you want to drink. Pick up the phone and call somebody. So I left and I felt pretty good about it. I was like, okay, Lord, well, I'm in the right place. No doubt about it, And I continued to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Their alcoholism, and I'm going to back up for a second because I want to give some information. Some alcoholics have to detox. I wasn't one of those. I had to detox spiritually and financially in some other ways, but my body did have to physically detox because I drank for almost 40 years. So there was a whole lot going on in my body, but thankfully my body wasn't to the point where when I stopped drinking, I had the shakes and I was, trembling. For people like that, they have to go to a medical facility and be under a doctor's care to detox, because if they don't, they run the risk of losing their lives. I didn't even know that there was medication that you could take to help you not want to drink, that would kind of like wean you off of the alcoholism or the alcohol. I was like, wow. So I didn't need any of that. God was everything that I needed. God was everything that I needed, because Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual program. So once I started in AA, I went to a couple of meetings and I talked to some people. You had a meeting before the meeting where you come and you sit and you talk, and, they smoke outside. I don't smoke cigarettes. Every now and then I may want to smoke a cigar. But, I sit out there with them and I talked and we had coffee. And they kept telling me, get a sponsor. You need to work the 12 steps. So I kept looking and I was like, I don't know. And I prayed about it. And I saw a lady who was just beautiful from the outside. And when she spoke, she was soft spoken, very intelligent, and very well dressed. Kind of reminded myself of me. And I was like, well, I looked at her. I was like, well, hell, I don't know what she's doing, but whatever it is, that's who I want for my sponsor. So I approached her and she became my sponsor. And she walked me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, I thought in my mind that once the taste of alcohol was removed and I had admitted that I was an alcoholic, my favorite thing is, the heavens are going to open up and everything is wonderful. You're going to live joyous, happy, and free. And you can definitely live joyous, happy, and free, but you have to put the work in. You have to put the work in. And whatever you put in is what you get out. If you half do it, then you're going to have a half recovery. And I had to jump in full-fledged because at first I used to be fearful of relapsing. I was like, I just don't ever want to go back there. I don't ever, I was just afraid of it. Everything that I did in my mind was to keep me from relapsing. The 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, for me, is something that was life-saving. It is a spiritually based program. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I will continue to do the work until the day I die. I will never stop working my 12 steps, because when I learned the 12 steps of Alcoholic Anonymous, then I was able to take those 12 steps and apply them to my daily life, which made me a better human being. Well, the 4 stages of alcoholism is also the 4 stages of recovery. They just flip-flop. The first stage of alcoholism is early stage, then you have your middle stage, then you have your late stage, then you have the bottom of it, which is hitting bottom. On the flip side of that, when you're trying to climb your way back up, early stage of recovery, middle stage of recovery, and late stage of recovery, which is where I am now. But my early stage of recovery, in my mind, was discovery. And it still is. I had to learn and look at and pull out, first of all of the thoughts and anger and resentment and hatred, insecurity, and all of these other issues. Because as I learned, alcoholism was not the problem. It was the solution. It was the solution to me fighting against all of the stuff that was in my head. And I remember listening to a speaker named Sandy Beach, and he talked about our minds being like a warehouse, and how we have stuffed and packed all of the things that have happened to us in our lives that were negative, good, bad, ugly, whatever. We've stacked them in that warehouse, and that warehouse is just full. It's full to the rim. When you open the door, that's all you can do is open the door and stand there in amazement at all of the stuff that's in there. And he went on to say that when it's full like that, God can't use you. God can't move around. You don't have any room for him to come in. So I had the task of, step 1 was admitting you're an alcoholic. These are the 12 steps of Alcoholic Anonymous. Step 2 is realizing that there is no human power that can relieve me from alcoholism. And step 3 is asking God to come into my life and remove it. Well, okay, that's good. All right, good. I'm there. I did that. I did my reading. I did my work. Blah, blah, blah. I met my sponsor every week. We had discussions. We talked. Then I got to step 4. Now, this is where the work begins. I'm still in early stage of recovery because I'm only about, maybe April, May of 2018. And my sobriety date is November 25th, 2017. So I'm feeling real good. It's in that little pink, they call it the pink cloud, where, I'm just, everything is hunky-dory and, I'm doing the doggone thing. And then I got to step 4. And step 4 forced me to pull out, drag out, uncover, release all of the stuff that I had been carrying around my entire life from my very first memory. Good, bad, ugly, and uglier. I had to examine it. I had to pull it out. And I remember going through the 4th step process where you list all of the people from the top of the sheet to the bottom, top to bottom, that have pissed you off, that you're upset with, that did you wrong, that you did wrong, etc., etc. You list all of them first. And I was like, oh, okay. Hell, I'm still listing some. There are still times when things happen, and I still have to go back to this 4th step and work it, because it works. The program says it works if you work it. Then the next row, or the next column, top to bottom, I had to list what they did. The next row, I had to list how it made me feel. Then I had to list what was my part. And then we went on and on and on. Was it, did it affect you economically? Was it physical? Was it sexual? Etc., etc. It was very detailed. So once I listed all of that, and it took me it took me about 3 months really to work through step 4, because I didn't want to pull all that stuff out. I didn't want to feel all of those feelings, but that's part of the process. You have to feel it. It's okay to feel it. You just can't stay there. Don't get stuck there. So, and then some of it, I just could not understand what was my part, because there were things that were done that I was an innocent bystander. So what was my part? I couldn't get it. I would get frustrated. I would cry. I would get mad. I would cuss, and I would go on that rant and rave about how unfair it was, which it was. Some of the things that have happened to me in my life were unfair. I mean, totally. Nobody, no child, teenager should have had to endure some of the things that I endured. But my part in it was, what did you do with it? Well, when I was younger, I didn't know what to do with it. I just did what my instincts told me. Bury it. Like a dog, you bury it. You don't want to feel it. You don't want to look at it. So you bury it, and you keep burying it, and you keep burying it until you have so much in there. It's like you can't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't focus. But I never knew that was the baseline problem. Well, we worked through step 4, and then I got to step 5, and step 5 was, you talked with another human being about it, and you admit it, and you talk about it. It's some stuff that I said I take to my grave. I was like, oh, no, I ain't gonna be able to talk about this one. We're gonna keep this one between me and Jesus. We're gonna take this one all the way down to the cross, honey. We ain't talking about that. But I did. And I trusted my sponsor. I felt like, and we had so much in common. And she made me feel comfortable by telling me things about her 4th step that I could relate to. And I found out that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It was bad. It was bad. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And I wasn't the only one. I wasn't by myself. I just thought I was. And then I started to look at my character defects. Some of the things that Bridget has to admit that aren't very pleasant about Bridget. Bad attitude. Don't want to listen. Headstrong to the point where you can't tell me anything. I'm right and I know I'm right, and you need to get out of my face talking to me. No tolerance. Compassion when I wanted to. In other words, I may have had the characteristics that were pleasing to Jesus and Jehovah God, but very seldom did I let them shine through. Basically because there was so much other baggage blocking it, it couldn't get through. Once I dug up all of that gook and exposed it for what it was, then I was able to ask God to remove my character defects. Help me to learn a better way. We're at step 7 now, and I'm coming on into the middle stage of recovery. And I'm about, I think I may be coming up, almost a year now in recovery. And I'm at the middle stage, and I'm still working my steps. I'm still studying. I'm going to my meetings. I try to make 2 or 3, 4 or 5, sometimes 6 meetings a week. Depends on if it's holidays I'm going, because there's always an AA meeting. I'm at step 8. And step 8 is when you have to make amends. That was a hard step for me, because now I have to go back to all the people that I've wronged, and I have to make an amends. I have to have a conversation with them. Now, sometimes they teach us in AA that if that process is going to cause damage or hurt, then by all means, let it go. You don't have to. Or if that person is deceased. So I had to find other ways. I had to write letters. And I made as many as I possibly could. There are still some that I need to make. There are still some people that I need to sit face to face with. Most people were forgiving and applauded me and were proud of me. There has been a few that were just like, I don't want to hear it. B, get out of my face. Don't call me no bam. And I had to deal with that too, because it teaches me in AA that I have to keep my side of the street clean. I cannot control people, places, and things, but I had to make the effort. I had to put forth the effort to try and make amends. I wrote letters to people that were deceased and put it in a balloon and released it. I mean, I found different ways, but the biggest one I had a problem with was making amends with myself. Making an amends with myself, forgiving myself and letting myself know that you were who you were and you were doing the best that you possibly could in the midst of an active addiction. That was really hard because for some reason I hold myself on a pedestal like I'm all of that in a bag of chips and I can do no wrong. And when I started to look at all the stuff that I had done, it was difficult for me to forgive myself. You know, I can forgive others quicker than I could forgive me. And that was a problem, because if I couldn't forgive myself, then I was going to let that eat at me and build back up in me, and I was going to end up going back out of the rooms. And so I had to keep working on that. You know, I had to work diligently to get me to forgive me. Well, I remember my first year being sober. I was so excited. I had a brunch at oh my God, I can't even think of the name of it now. It'll come to me. My friends came and they celebrated me. My sponsor was there. My sisters were there. My son and his girlfriend. And it was just a beautiful event. And I've continued the process. I was still in middle stage because now I'm trying to work my way back up to being a normal, better human being. Some of the challenges I faced, I remember my first Christmas not drinking. I remember my first birthday, my first Thanksgiving, my first summer break, my first spring break. You know, everything was a first. And it was very exciting, but it was also challenging because I had developed a routine of this is what you do. Now, I've never had the taste, the physical taste for alcohol ever since I asked God to remove it from me. But the thought and learning how to unlearn and reinvent myself was really a challenge because I had to learn a new way of living because the way that I used to live was not going to sustain me. The way that I used to live, the things that I used to do, the ways that I used to act, the way I used to carry myself, the way I used to talk, I had to unlearn and relearn. I had to reinvent myself all over again. And I just remember, it was Good Friday, and I was driving from work, and I was like, man, I could sure go to Pele Pele and have me a cucumber martini. And then I just laugh and say, well, bitch, you're an alcoholic. You can't drink. What are you talking about? And I remember being agitated about that. And I went to a meeting. And I remember, you know, they asked, does anybody have anything pressing on their mind? And I brought that up and, you know, everybody talked to me about it and just told me, you're going to have to tell yourself, you can't, and that's the end of it, and you're going to be okay. Get over it. You can't have a drink. You never can have a drink. because I cannot allow myself to ever think that I can drink normally, because that's a lie. I cannot. I have an allergy to alcohol. One drink is too much, and a whole bottle is not enough. So I learned how to deal with my first. I was excited. After a while, I stopped looking at them as my first. I remember going on my first vacation sober. And I remember, which was really not kind of risky, I ended up sitting in the back of the RV with the cooler, and I was the bartender. Now, mind you, we're on our way to Destin, Florida for spring break. And it's about 5 of us, and only 2 knew that I was in recovery, that I had stopped drinking. The other ladies didn't. So I'm study fixing their drinks. It never bothered me. Oh, God, thank you, Jesus. It never bothered me. I'd fix their drink, pass it to them, and keep on going. Well, when we got to the hotel where I live in quarters, and, there's people, everybody started to drink. And I remember them saying, one lady saying, Bass, why you not drinking? I said, I don't drink anymore. And she just kind of looked at me like, what you mean you don't drink anymore? And I said, because I'm an alcoholic. And she almost spit out her drink. She just bust out laughing. I'm like, girl, stop lying. You ain't no alcoholic, Bass. And I just bust out laughing. And I was like, yes, I am. If I don't know nothing else, sweetie, I'm an alcoholic. And their faces were just like, what? You an alcoholic? How, and it became a conversation. And I remember that there was someone else there who was struggling with alcohol or who was abusing alcohol, and they became very offensive. Well, I'm not an alcoholic. And I was like, I didn't say you was an alcoholic. I said I'm an alcoholic and I'm not drinking. And so, for the biggest part, they respected it. It was a couple of more. It was one other lady there. Another friend of mine who didn't drink, or she could drink and not drink, doesn't make a difference. So, I had a support system if I needed it, but nobody pressured me. And I remember in my mind thinking, because I still, by this time, I'm ready to start kind of living my life again. I'm kind of ready to start doing some of the things that I used to do. I like to trail ride. I like Harley Davidsons. I like the Zydeco. I like the country western, etc., etc. So I started kind of doing it. And I remember I used to tell my friend, I was like, well, I'm going to take me a cup in my hand so it'll look like I have me a drink and won't nobody be asking me nothing about no drink and blah, 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 Bridget. And she used to be like, well, if you're not ashamed of it, why would you do that? So, and I kept trying to justify, well, I don't want nobody asking me and I have to tell them blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? I went to the MLK trail ride with a cup in my hand, and then I drunk up all my ginger tea, and ain't nobody asked me nothing. Didn't nobody offer, if they offered me a drink and I said, no, I'm good. It wasn't like they tried to pry my mouth open and pour me some tequila in my mouth to make me drink and join in with them. It was all in my mind. Of course, I think that people think about me more than what they do because that's my ego. Ego, E-G-O. It stands for edging God out. Ego. And I have to be very careful not to let my ego get the best of me. And when I feel that, because that's natural, that's part of my DNA. When I feel it rising up in me, I have to hurry up quickly and say the serenity prayer, or I just say, God, thy will be done, not mine. Thy will be done, not mine, because it's not about me. And I have to remember that. So, I went on, life is good. I'm enjoying recovery. I'm enjoying being sober. I'm learning how to live being sober. So I went on my second vacation. I went to Los Angeles, California. Had a blast. I didn't even know that I could live life and enjoy life without drinking. Didn't know it. Didn't have a clue, because most of the time when I went on a trip, I remember going to the CIAA in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had never been there. And it was about 5 or 6 of us riding around. And somebody said, I hate to find a liquor store I swear to you guys, I think it was ABC liquor store. I said, go up to that street, to that red light, turn left and make 2 blocks, and it's a shopping strip, and it's a liquor store there. I had peeped the liquor store with us just passing by, driving, because that was important to me. And I laughed. So when I was able to go and do things and enjoy life without drinking, it was amazing to me. It was so much better than being turned up and trying to remember stuff, what happened. I talked about last week how when I went somewhere to an event or a function and I drove home sober, I was so excited to know what route I took home after I had went out and danced and had some mocktails like a ginger ale or Arnold Palmer or whatever, a virgin tea, what is that? Strawberry daiquiri or whatever. I didn't even know you could get all these drinks without alcohol, mind you. That's still a whole nother learning experience for me. Or just some plain old water with a lemon. Doesn't make a difference. But I remember driving home so excited. I called people and they was like, oh, okay. And then I had to explain to them that this is one of the first times in a long time that I was driving home sober and I could remember my route and I wasn't inebriated and didn't know it, or so intoxicated I couldn't remember. So I went to California. We were in Santa Barbara. We were on the horseback in the mountains, and I could see the mountains on one side and the water on the other, and everything stayed in its place. And I just remember crying. My friend was in the front and she was nervous about being on a horse up in the mountains. So the tour guide was with her, and that left me kind of by myself in the back. But I was grateful for that because that gave me a time to be up there and be close to God and just to be in awe with nature and how beautiful it was, and the fact that I was sober. And now in my recovery, everything is designed around my sobriety. Even there, I didn't catch a meeting on that vacation. I thought about it, but I didn't put forth the effort. But when we went that August to Arizona, I did go to a meeting. And it's funny that when you are anywhere, I was in Dallas at a graduation, at my best friend's daughter's graduation. I found a meeting, and I can find a meeting anywhere. I can find an AA meeting anywhere. And when I walk in those rooms, no matter what, they welcome you with open arms. They may look different. They may have a different accent, etc., but they're the same group of people. A bunch of alcoholics working their program, trying to stay sober 24 hours at a time. And everybody was so nice. I love that fact that I can go anywhere. I can be anywhere, and I can find me a meeting and I can get to it. So we went to Arizona, had a blast, a beautiful time. I'm enjoying recovery. Well, somewhere in there, I started to feel a little uneasy. At this time, I'm just going to AA meetings. I'm about almost 2 years in now of my recovery and sobriety. I almost have 2 years. And I started to feel like, I remember having my son's and his girlfriend baby shower at my house. I've always loved to entertain. I love to have people in my house. I love to party and cook food and drink, and we just have a good time. But this time it was different. Everybody almost got on my nerves. They didn't really get on my nerves, but what it was is that a different me is starting to come about. And I didn't understand this different me because I'm starting to have feelings like, oh, I don't want you over there sitting, wasting that drink over there by my couch. I'm starting to be particular and I just started to learn a different Bridget. And I didn't really know how to accept who I was or who I started to see that I was, because who I thought I was is not who I am. That's who I was in the midst of my addiction when I was active in alcoholism. But who I am today is a different person. I don't think the same. I don't talk the same. I don't act the same. I don't respond the same. Now, I can do all of the things the same, and I will do them the same if I don't work my program. It is imperative that people understand that when you have an addiction, you have to put the work in. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. What you put in is what you get. And I've even been blessed enough, I call it a bank account. It's my sobriety bank account. I try to keep my bank account full, especially with COVID. My bank account was full because I couldn't get to a meeting. But I was able to go in there and make withdrawals. And it's just like an ATM. If I didn't have anything in my account, it was going to hit declined, rejected, insufficient. I had enough in me. I had put enough work in to sustain me. But again, I will tell anybody, Jehovah God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is my primary resource for recovery. AA is secondary, and all of the other tools that I've learned to use. But I know that if I can't get to a meeting and all of a sudden I want to jump up and drink, then something is wrong, because it shouldn't be the meeting. It should be God that's sustaining me. And that's what I stand on. So I'm grateful I had enough in me. I had enough resources where I could listen to different speakers from AA, or we could do Zoom meetings, etc., until we can get back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because even though I have the very best friend and family support group, I know they love me. That's no doubt about it in my mind. But I have to be in the rooms with people who are like me, because the people who are like me, they really get me. They're on the inside looking out, whereas my family and friends are on the outside looking in. There's a difference. They see it from their point of view because they don't struggle with addiction. They don't have alcoholism, etc. So it's imperative that I be around people who are like me, because that's where I get some of my strength from. So I remember my friend telling me that, Bridget, when it's going to come a time when you're going to have to go and get you some therapy. You know, AA is good, don't get me wrong, but you're going to start to have this uncomfortable feeling, and you're going to have to dig a little deeper. So I remember calling her because some of my friends had told me that day that, my attitude was a little stink, and, I made them feel uncomfortable, and I was, oh my God, that's not what I didn't mean to do that, etc. So I went to therapy, and I went to a lady who I've been going to, who is my holistic therapist, and we started having conversations. And, I got to the point where one time where I didn't want to go to my meetings. And, and every time I do that or did that, I would get almost like to a standstill. And it would be like I would be stuck. I didn't necessarily want to drink. I didn't have the taste for drinking, but the thoughts started rolling back up in my mind because I'm not working my program. And I have to work my program in order to stay sober. I have to be in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because, as I said before, alcoholism wasn't the problem. It was the solution to all the other stuff that I had going on in my mind. And honey, trust me, it'd be a lot moving around up in there sometimes a little bit too much. I have to tell it, okay, slow your roll. Calm down. It's going to be all right. And I found out I have anxiety. I have it really bad. Didn't know it. I drank so much. Hell, I was anxious when I drank. I remember being on medication for anxiety when I was drinking. And they told me that I couldn't drink and take the medicine. Well, that was a no-brainer. No medicine. I stopped drinking. I mean, I stopped taking the medicine. I wasn't finna stop drinking. Drinking was everything. You know, it was my life. And I just kept going to therapy. I've stayed in the rooms of AA, and I started to see myself change. I remember my 1 year sobriety, and my son called me and congratulated me. And he told me how proud he was of me. And he shared some things with me about how scared he used to be, how he used to be afraid to pick up the home phone because he would think it would be somebody calling him to let him know that they had found my body or they had found my vehicle, etc., etc. And man, that tore me up that morning. But it sure made me appreciate my journey of recovery. And it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. Lifelong journey. I will always be in recovery. And if I'm not, I'm fooling myself. If I'm not in recovery, then I'm back out. I run the strong risk of being active in my addiction. So I will always be in recovery. Alcoholic Anonymous and the Big Book, going to my meetings and interacting with my other fellow brothers and sisters. I had an opportunity to go to the first convention last year in the Galleria, and I was just in awe at the number of people. I met a lady there who she had like 40 years of sobriety. And I'm like, dang, she got as much sobriety as I do, years of drinking. And it was just a beautiful thing to see people from all parts of Texas and other areas coming together for the state convention. It was different. I didn't know all of those things existed. Yeah, recovery is wonderful, but it's work. It's still work. I mean, I still have to deal with who Bridget is. But because I have God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and AA, it's a whole lot easier. It's a whole lot easier. It's doable. It's workable. I have to put the work in. I have to monitor myself. I have to, sometimes I have to unplug from social media and from the news. Sometimes I have to unplug from people because I can't afford to have anyone throw me off of my journey. Well, it's been almost an hour. I'm going to come to and stop now. I've talked about hitting bottom, the early stage of recovery, and I'm going to stop in the middle stage of recovery where I really start to learn who Bridget is and what Bridget likes and what Bridget doesn't like and how different it is from what I thought it was. I am totally not the person that I thought I was when I was drinking. I'm a different creature, and for that I'm grateful. My experience, my strength, and my hope of recovery is everything. And I can say this: if God did it for me, and as jacked up as I was and toe up from the flow up, he can do it for anybody. You just have to want it. You have to want it, and you have to work for it. Because just me saying, oh, I want to be sober, and sometimes I've said those and I'm going to stop drinking, I really meant it, but I wasn't willing to put the work in. You know, putting the work in is constant. You know, it's everything. But it gets easier, and then there are some times when it's hard. You know, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, or any information that you'd like for me to focus on next Saturday. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful comments. I'm proud of myself. It is not me. It is it is only God that I'm able to sit and do a live, not be embarrassed, but use it as my strength. Because I remember always hearing, you take lemons and make lemonade. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing, because the sour, ugly parts of my life is what I'm using to help build the beautiful parts of my life and be spiritually attractive enough that someone can see something in me and remember, oh, I remember when Bridget Bass was so-and-so, so-and-so, and be like, damn, I wonder what happened to her, God. I want that to be visual, because it's my testimony. It's what I'm supposed to do. You know, in AA, they teach you about service work, you know, about how you have to take, it's your obligation, and it's a privilege. I haven't had the privilege of sponsoring anybody yet, but when it comes, I will welcome it. Now I fought it for a while, but now I'm at the point where I know that it's that time, and when it comes, I will be more than willing to sponsor somebody. But in the meantime, my purpose for doing this was to let everybody know, any and everybody, share it with your friends, your families, co-workers, etc., that alcoholism is real, and it will destroy and kill you if you allow it. But you do have a choice. There is a way out. It's work, and it's work, and it's work. But boy, is it worth it? Because if this sober glow from the inside out is what I see and what my friends tell me they see, then it is worth every moment. It is worth every struggle. It is worth every challenge, because I'm not going to say that, oh, once you stop drinking, your life becomes perfect and everything falls into place. No, it doesn't. It becomes even more challenging. But I'm at the stage now where it's not about Bridget anymore. You know, my first 2 years was about Bridget, and everybody focused on me and they helped me work through it. Okay, time is up. You should have it by now. And if you don't have it, you know you have a sponsor, you know you have other people in the rooms you can talk to. But now it's my turn to do service work and help others. And that's what Sober Saturday is all about. Alrighty, next Saturday I will be part 3 on Sober Saturday. And I will continue to talk about the middle stage of recovery and the late stage of recovery, and what that is looking like for me, because I'm in the late stage of recovery now, where I have to do certain things to maintain my sobriety. And it's a pleasure, it's a privilege to do those things and to be active in my recovery. I was active in my alcoholism. Now I'm active in my recovery. Does anybody have any questions that they would like for me? I'm going to scroll through. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this video. I'm going to put it on my sobriety coach page, Bridget Bass Sobriety Coach page. You can feel free to share it with your friends. Anything else? I'm looking through. Alrighty. I'll thank everyone for being here or tuning in and listening to me today. I'm enjoying this. I'm grateful, as I said before, for the opportunity. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, and because I respect people's privacy, because in A, we have, a saying with our privacy. And if you want to speak with me, message me, and I will respond to you individually. This is Bridget Bass. I am a grateful, recovering alcoholic, and my sobriety date is November the 11th. November 25th, 2017. It's been a privilege. Thank you for joining me on my second Sober Saturday. Kisses and smooches. See you next week. Bye-bye.